Hello and welcome to the Module 3 overview for WST591 Professionalizing Feminisms. So we're in Module 3. This is exciting. You've now had a couple content modules to get your brains really delving into what it means to organize social services through nonprofits, what some of those limitations may be, what the possibilities are, and you're starting to understand nonprofits within a larger neoliberal framework. And so Module 3 focuses on money. How do nonprofits get funded? Are nonprofits the best way to distribute funds for social service provision? What are alternative modes of engaging in supports, such as mutual aid? So as you go through this module, make sure that you can define some key terms. Make sure that you can define philanthropy, charity, solidarity, and mutual aid, right? So those are 4 terms that I want to make sure that you can define and that you can articulate the relationships between. So for example, mutual aid is a form of solidarity, right? Why is it that there are critiques of charity? What is an alternative to charity? This is why there's so many critiques of neoliberalism as an organizing philosophy. Neoliberalism funnels our energies, monies, imaginations, right? It funnels all of that away from liberation, which is the goal of social movement, and instead funnels it towards individualization, reforms, and institutionalization. And so that's why there's such a critique of nonprofits as this institutionalized form of social service care and provision. Neoliberalism is one of the action arms of liberal democracy, and many scholars argue that this is a myth. There's a myth of liberal democracy, and that this myth of liberal democracy tells us that if we own private property, if we organize our families in certain ways, and we do work, that we will be taken care of, right? This idea of being able to pull ourselves up by our bootstrap, that is a mythology. In the late 1800s and early 1900s in the US, the sort of neoliberal idea was that you have really rich families like Rockefellers and Carnegies who got really rich through exploiting workers, through enslaved labor, through what we would call exploitation and probably violent practices today. And so we had these really rich families, Rockefellers and Carnegies. And those families felt a responsibility towards a social good. And so they engaged in charity and philanthropy. Charity was really a very big phrasing back then. Today, we tend to hear things about giving. Back then, it was charity, charity, charity. You give to charity. You are fortunate, so you give to those who are less fortunate. You have something to give, so you give to those who are in need. It doesn't question the social structures as to why there are people in need. It doesn't question the institutions that are failing those people so that they aren't getting what they may need in order to survive, right? Housing, food, basic financial stability, access to education, right? There's some real basic needs in a supposed liberal democracy that weren't necessarily being met. And so Carnegies and Rockefellers and others who got really rich through violence and exploitation then gave back with their monies. But in giving back, those Carnegies and Rockefellers, they built art institutions. They believed in education, right? They were really big on museums, things that were meant for people who didn't have the money to be able to buy expensive pieces of art. That's okay. You can go to the art museum and see art because they felt that there was a value to art for everyone. That is a very different philosophical approach than what we see today. This is why in our readings you'll also come across critiques of reforms and critiques of reformism. Because again, this idea is that all our social systems work, they're fine, they just need a little bit of tweaking. Positive. And reforms keep social systems and structures in place. So this module is looking at that myth of liberal democracy through the lens of money, through the lens of financing nonprofits, financing mutual aid, financing charity, financing philanthropy. What does that look like, right? Who's being helped and why? In what ways are nonprofits both disciplined by the people who give them money, by federal governments, state governments, funders, right? So funders might say, and are saying now, right? The federal government is saying, if you want to do research projects, you can't use words like women or trans. So we can talk about things like fundraising for nonprofits, being a grant writer for nonprofits, trying to help ensure that the nonprofit itself can survive and thrive. And then we can also talk about alternatives like mutual aid. Mutual aid is a form of collective care, according to Dr. Spade. I believe Dr. Spade calls it collective coordination, right, to meet the needs of everyone. It's the assertion that we all have needs and that we all have to help each other out for society to be stable, equitable, right? So not this idea of charity or charity or philanthropy, as in, oh, I have something to give, so I will give it to you, and now I feel great. Right. So, people who are unhoused, who are homeless, they're hungry. Let's go help make some sandwiches and pass out sandwiches. That's great. That's charity. Not a bad thing. However, that doesn't actually fit why people are unhoused in the first place. It doesn't fix why people were unhoused in the first place. It doesn't fix or address why people who are unhoused are hungry. And so mutual aid might be monetary distribution, it might be food distribution, it might be something else like, I don't know, SIM card distribution. It's basically asking ourselves, how do we organize for us? For material, substantive, systemic change, and for material care. For example, your professor, I donate to a sex worker rights mutual aid fund. I study sex work and sexual labor and sex worker rights organizing in the US. So I am somebody who has professor wage, and so I set up a monthly donation to a mutual aid for sex workers in the US. And I like the mutual aid fund because there's no questions asked in terms of, there are questions asked, but there's not, those questions don't limit your ability to access the funds, right? So whether you need it for housing, for medical care, for child care, right? A lot of times, housing is pretty precarious, and so it's just about trying to get into another place. They can use the money for whatever they need it for. There's no limitations. Whereas from nonprofits, such things are a lot harder to offer. For example, even us, ASU, right? We offer emergency funds for students, but those have limitations and those have restrictions to them. We are living through a very unique moment of turbulent policy change. And this policy change is not only, it's turbulent because it's happening so fast, it's turbulent because it's not following the ways in which policy change usually occurs, and it's also turbulent because some of those policy changes are actually against the law, right? Like it's not following legal process. And so we don't know what will happen, right? And that's why this is really important for you to study what we already know about how this works so that you can best assess what is happening right now and in the future. Because this is going to impact you as people living in the world, as people engaged in wanting the world to be a better place, as people with really differing identities, whether we are part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, which I include myself on, whether you are a person of color, Black, Indigenous, other people of color in the US, whether you're an immigrant, undocumented, or documented. There are so many identities under attack right now. And so I encourage you to think creatively, imaginatively. What does queering the feminist dollar look like now, right? Is it more important than ever? Does it need to be what other sort of options do you see available to us? What does it mean to have a life in fundraising now? Can you have a life in fundraising now? I honestly don't know. I used to tell students that becoming a grant writer was a great way to ensure that you would have a stable job. I can't say that anymore. I don't know if that's true. So take your time in reading the readings. Try to connect the readings on mutual aid and funding with the development of your feminist killjoy identity as you start to play that out a bit through our course. And as always, please do reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm now going to hold an totally optional, totally voluntary study hall on Monday evenings from 6 to 7 Mountain Standard Time. So it's the Arizona time, because that was the time that worked out best for the 3 students who indicated interest. If you have questions and would like to speak with me one-on-one, please do reach out. I'm happy to make an appointment to engage with you on Zoom, via phone. Otherwise, you can also just email me or post on the community help forum. I really do appreciate the level of engagement y'all have had so far. Keep it up. You're doing really well. And I look forward to seeing your work online. Thank you.